Well, guys, it's Iron Bowl week. Alabama and Auburn will meet at Bryant-Denny Stadium on Saturday in the regular season finale of the college football season. The Tide in a much different situation than when we talked a week ago after falling to Oklahoma on the road. Mike Johnson, Simone Eli joining you. Let's talk Alabama football. Let's go head to head. All right, welcome in everybody. Mike and Simone once again talking Bama football as we enter the final game of the regular season. Mike, I don't know what to say when we're talking about last week. I mentioned it a minute ago. Man, what a disappointing situation Alabama has found themselves in as they go into the Iron Bowl. And just from the sounds of it, I mean, there's so much to unpack here. But what are your initial thoughts when you look back at that game in Norman?
Well, the initial thoughts are I don't know. Simone, when you look at this game in Norman, this one to me goes in a category all on its own in terms of what we saw from
Yeah,
this team. You go back to the Vanderbilt game, and you and I, obviously shocking to a lot of people. You and I, yeah, hey, Vanderbilt's a good team. They can go win. Even in that loss, it was like Jalen Milrose playing well. Offensively, we're playing well. Put up 35 points. It's just a bad play here, bad play there. The defense could ever diagnose what they needed to do, couldn't get off the field. I've really struggled, Simone, in the last couple of days finding something Bama did well, finding something that excites
yeah.
me about this Alabama team because I think they got out coached offensively. I think they got out coached defensively. I think the leadership was lacking. I think the players you've leaned on the entire season from top to bottom were lacking. The
Yeah.
injury news stinks. The effort at times stinks. I mean, I've gone top to bottom on both sides of the ball and tried to find something that excited me about this game, and it feels almost impossible. The offensive line didn't play very well. We'll get into it throughout the show, but the right side of the offensive line continues to struggle. Jalen Milroe on his own
Yeah.
read continues to struggle. And like I said, Simone, you get past that and you say, well, we've known all season that Elijah Pritchett struggles at right tackle at times in pass pro. And yet we keep putting him up to bat to go one-on-one pass pro. Like we saw
Yeah.
it against South Carolina. We saw it against Tennessee. We saw it against
True.
Vanderbilt. So at what point do we take the blame off of Elijah Pritchett and start putting it on, the other people that are pulling the strings? I thought the tight ends didn't play very well. I think the pass catchers didn't play very well. It just was frustrating. And I think a lot of Alabama fans will kind of identify with that you really scratch and claw to find something you were excited about. And I think we're all kind of holding our breath as you point toward Auburn next weekend, because Auburn is a capable football team as well. Much in the way that
Yeah.
Oklahoma, they will be very hungry to go out and beat Alabama this weekend.
Yeah, I think that we talked a little bit last week in regards to these two teams is that you have an Oklahoma team that really had nothing to lose, but everything to gain in a possible win. Yeah, obviously, I'm bringing in Alabama for the first time as an SEC program, whereas Alabama, everything to lose possibly when it comes to college football playoff chances. When you look at what was on the line and the effort and the preparation, and I know there's so many question marks and a lot of things you don't have the answer to, you wonder a little bit, I guess, maybe about the message, maybe from Kalen DeBoer. People start to point fingers and wonder, is he the guy? And I don't want to be that guy. I don't know. My coach's wife never really called for coaches' heads. I'm just not that person. Everyone has
Yeah.
their style. I'm good with that. But you wonder, is there a is there a need to get up and go a little bit that needed to take place or that didn't? Or I don't know. I mean, I hate to be that guy, but I think it's kind of what everyone's talking about right now.
Well, and I think that those are questions that need to be asked, right? And I'm with you. I'm on board with Kalen DeBoer. I still think he's the right guy for this job. I will say that he needs to start by beating Auburn this weekend, and then I think the month that follows that, right? What are you during bowl practice? How many times, Simone, and you know this as well as I do, how many times do we hear the term transfer portal? How many
Yeah.
times do we hear opt out? Because you don't really know what this team's going to look like next year, and that's
Yeah.
the crazy part is how many times we've in the past. Well, it's a team growing. It's a team developing. They're trying to understand the scheme. They're trying to do different things. They're getting to know one another. They're
Lot
still
of
learning.
yeah. Yeah.
We don't know that it won't be the same storyline a year from now. No
Yeah.
college program seems to. So as he developed those relationships, and look, there's a number of players that I am praying come back on this roster, but there's also some guys that I wonder if we'll go out in the portal and
Sure.
try to upgrade at certain spots and try to
Yeah.
find guys that maybe do things a little bit differently. I think the future of the quarterback position is kind of at the top of that list. And you and I have talked about it a number of times this year, Simone. I'm a big fan of Jalen Milroe, but it's very obvious to a lot of people that there's been a lot of missteps this year.
Mhm.
And not only has there been missteps with the way he's played or some of the things he's done on the field, but I didn't love the leadership that he showed this past weekend for one of the first times. I thought him
Yeah.
kind of losing his composure, his body language on the sidelines, some of the things that it looked like he was saying to his teammates, very un-Jalen Milrow-esque. And
Yeah.
so I'm very confused about what that will be moving forward. But one thing is very clear. You have to find somebody that can be the quarterback of Kalen DeBoer's offense and run it the way Kalen DeBoer wants you to. And
Mhm.
if we can't, then there's going to have to be changes made. So I'll just finish by saying this: Jackson Arnold played like I wish Jalen Milrow would play, and I never thought I would say that coming off this game. He played gritty.
Fair.
He did a good job running the ball downhill. He was dragging tacklers. He was hitting guys in the mouth. He was being the more physical player. When it comes to the quarterback position, didn't think I'd say that, but here
Yeah.
we are talking about a 24-3 loss to Oklahoma, and I just don't think we're getting enough out of certain guys at certain positions on this team.
Kalen DeBoer was asked about the offensive plan going into the game, and he mentioned something. I don't want to quote. I don't know exact words, but he pretty much said that this was the plan. That there were missed opportunities with explosive plays, never really got into the flow, just kind of that sort of thing. When you look at the play calling, when you look at the plan from a person who understands the X's and O's better than just your normal person, what did you feel like went wrong? Was it just a lack of execution? Which what exactly does that mean? Was it decision making on Jalen Milrow's part? What happened on the pick six? I still don't. I mean, what? I mean, there's so many whats, and I hate to be you. You said it best. Do be a palms up guy or a palms down. Well, I'm be a palms up guy right now, okay? Because I don't know what the heck is going on, and neither do you. But I mean, what answers do you have for us, Mike? Tell us something.
Yeah, well, look, I think let's start with the pick six, the screenplay. That's to me, that's not on Jalen Milrow. That's on the blocking of the wide receivers. That's on Ryan Williams understanding that you have to kind of break that ball up. You have to attack it. There are a lot of things to be blamed on Jalen Milrow. I'm not gonna blame him a readless throw. He's not reading anything. He's simply turning and throwing the ball out to Ryan Williams. He's getting it out of his hands now. So I'm not gonna blame that on him. But I think when Kalen DeBoer says that, and he talks about offensive game plan, I think there are just times when you say, I'm the bigger and better athlete. If I'm one-on-one with a lesser athlete, I have to gain yards. And Jalen Milrow is a very, very special athlete. At the top end of his speed, he's elite. He's 23, 24 miles an hour. He's running faster than a lot of guys in the NFL. The problem is that what is Jalen Milrow in the open field
Yeah.
and what is Jalen Milrow on zone reads? Because it seems to me when I watch him that he's not sure exactly what he's reading. And you and I said this last week on this podcast. When you look at Brent Venables in Oklahoma, Brent Venables didn't simply get to Oklahoma and forget how to coach defense or forget how to scheme defense. Brent Venables is a great defensive mind. He is an elite defensive mind. That's why he's the head coach in Oklahoma. And what he did to Jalen Milrow was force Jalen Milrow into situations where he had to make decisions very, very quickly. And Jalen Milrow could not make the right decision enough times. Not only that, when he did make the right decision and found himself one-on-one with defenders, couldn't make plays. He left an immeasurable amount of yards, and I'm gonna put it over 50 that I felt like he could have gained and somehow came up short for whatever reason, be it falling down when trying to juke somebody or losing his footing or not being able to break an open field tackle or whatever it may be, just taking a bad angle while he's running the ball. The other thing, Simone, I want to make sure I highlight this because it sounds like I'm coming down on Jalen Milrow hard when really I'm kind of coming down on the offensive staff a little bit here.
Yeah.
We have enough of a sample size now to know what Jalen Milrow is good at and what he's not good at.
True.
And we keep putting him in situations that I don't know if he's going to succeed in, right? And we keep going back to some of these plays. You and I said it before the LSU game. Jalen Milrow needed to have his best game, and it was his most pivotal game of his career against LSU, and he did. But even in those games, Jalen Milrow is outrunning a lot of people. He's not making plays in space. I don't know that he's a great open field runner. So we know what Jalen Milrow is, and at some point the offensive staff has to make those adjustments and has to be able – the same goes for the right side of the offensive line. Just like I said a minute ago, we know what Elijah Pritchett is at offensive line. We've also seen his backup and Wilcom Formby. It's not great. All right, so what can I do to help these guys and allow them to be in situations that really they can succeed in? And I think a lot of it does come down to, your question about Kalen DeBoer and the longevity of this coaching staff. A lot of it does come down to getting players they feel like can run their scheme, but
Yeah.
they've got to show some flexibility too. They've got to do things in a way that can really help. And it's not a wide receiver speed screen,
Yep.
right? Let's put the ball in the hands of these running backs. Let's be multi-dimensional on offense and not just rely on Jalen Milroe every single play to make magic happen.
When you look at the opponent that Auburn is and kind of where they are right now, this is a team that just won their first SEC game a couple weeks ago, and then picked up an unbelievable, nobody expected 4 overtime victory against Texas A&M to hurt the Aggies' chances of being in the college football playoff. So momentum, I talk about a lot on this show. I talk about it a lot just in general. Momentum in sports at the college level is so significant, and on the other side of that, so is just having the air taken out of you a little bit. And you start to wonder where the mentality of Alabama is, where the mentality of Auburn is. I think that this week we heard some Auburn players talking some smack. And listen, I love a rivalry game. I don't love freshmen talking crap. I don't care how good you are. That's just not my style. I played college sports. When I was a freshman, I shut up and I
Yeah.
sat at the end of the bench. So, it's just like kind of like, regardless of how much you play. And so you have the bulletin board material, and I think that that's part of the rivalry. It's what makes it great. Gives us all something to talk about. So there's that. That's wonderful. I want to get your thoughts on that as a former player perspective. Like if you're this teammate, um, of the linebacker over there at Auburn, what are your thoughts on Riddick, the trash talking towards Jalen Milroe, towards Ryan
Right.
Williams? Ironically, Auburn, when they sent the press conference, clipped out parts of that. So, like, it did not get sent to all of the media, but some people obviously had recorded it on their phones or on their other cameras. So that was kind of funny. I don't think that they loved it. But just your thoughts on where these two teams are momentum wise, or I guess Auburn is momentum wise, and how does this kind of play a role in this game, Mike?
Well, let me start my answer by telling you a story. In 2008, Julio Jones was a freshman, and Nick Saban didn't allow freshmen to talk.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time that Julio Jones was allowed to talk to the media was in the locker room after the SEC championship game when we just lost to Florida, because in the SEC championship, it's open locker room after the
Yeah.
game. It's not like that any other time. And the amount of camera, I couldn't even see Julio Jones because the amount of cameras that were around him, and I was going, what is everybody looking at over there? First time they've been able to talk to Julio Jones because, like I said, freshmen don't talk to the media under
Yeah.
Nick Saban. It's a different age. I'm not saying this is Hugh Freeze's fault and Kalen DeBoer, they're freshmen talking to Alabama now too. It's just different, right? Um, but if I'm his teammate, I'm not happy because because most of his teammates that have been in this program, that have played this game against Alabama, that know what the Iron Bowl is all about, that know how angry the fans in Bryant Denny are going to be this weekend.
They get
I,
mad.
I know what this game is all about, and I have kept my mouth shut. As
No,
his
no.
teammate, I'm going, dude, I've shut my mouth for 4 years. I don't need a freshman coming in here, 18 years old, and running their mouth and
Yeah.
stirring the pot. Because it's just not how you go about your business when you're in the right frame of mind. You're not worried
Yeah.
about them. You're worried about the things you need to do and the direction you need to go. So I think it's funny. I think it's rivalry week is just one of those crazy weeks. I was
It
just
is.
talking to a buddy of mine. He's like, "Hey, you gambling this weekend?" I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm not gambling in rivalry weekend. Like I don't like.
No
Who
doubt.
knows what's going to
Save
happen?
your money. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, who knows what's going to happen this
True.
weekend? So, look, it's just one of those things where I think it's funny. I would be highly upset if it was a Bama freshman that was doing the talking, but coming from Auburn, I just chuckle.
Yeah.
It's just
Well,
that's the
it's one
Bama
thing.
in me. I'm just looking at it going, hey man, dude, say what you got to say. But if it was one of those Bama freshmen, I'd be like, dude, you need to shut
Yeah.
your mouth.
No doubt. I mean, it's one thing to trash talk and like half the people agree with you, but like nobody agrees with you. Like nobody agrees that Ryan Williams is not an elite talent. I mean, and Jalen Miller can run is a pretty fast dude. And so I mean, listen, it's all part of it. It makes it more fun, I guess. We'll see how that impacts the game. And sometimes when you are so fired up, you start to overrun plays and you start to put too much effort in. You got to
Right.
calm down. And so how will that impact Auburn as they go to Bryant Denny Stadium? We'll see. Who knows? If you had to pick a key to the game and maybe the key to success, I guess, for Alabama, what needs to happen for this team to bounce back? And with that, Mike, what does the next level, next step of this season look like? Is it a bowl game? Is the college football playoff completely out? Of course, during this recording, we don't have where the standings are. I'm not sure that would matter. You just never know. And I'm not expecting you to have a crystal ball, but do you have that in the back of your mind as to what is the next step and are there opt outs? What do you think?
Well, and let me start with the college football playoff thing. I think it's out. I don't know that I don't know that I could look you straight in the face and say I think Alabama deserves a college football playoff spot. I think they're a good team, in certain situations, and other times I think they're very pedestrian, which is frustrating to watch. And I think
Yeah,
there's teams that are be more deserving, deserving being the key word, not
sure.
better, more deserving. So I'll start with that. The key to me, first of all, I think Kane Womack needs to attack the quarterback position. We have had certain weeks where you and I have gotten on here and talked about Kane Womack's defense and said, "Oh man, they had a great game plan." Almost all of those have come against quarterbacks that are not moving. Wisconsin, Carson Beck, Garrett Nussmeier, they're not moving. Like what those quarterbacks are. They're going to throw the ball from the pocket. We have done a great job under Kane Womack of affecting those guys. Let's go all the way back to South Florida, running quarterback. Diego Pavia, running quarterback. Obviously, what you saw last weekend for Oklahoma, running quarterback. That to me is what Kane Womack's going to have to try to solve in the next few days. How do we defend a Peyton Thorne and a quarterback that can take over a game with his legs when you
Yeah,
when you really need him to? That's going to be a tough conversation because now, like you just mentioned, we're without Deontay Lawson, and the game plan wasn't good either way. So you have to put some different pieces in different places. I think you just absolutely have to do whatever you can to attack the quarterback position, and then offensively, I think you have to take the ball out of the game, out of Jalen Milroe's hands, not the ball out of Jalen Milroe's hands. The game cannot ride on Jalen Milroe's shoulders. I don't think that's fair to Jalen Milroe. I don't think that if that is the game plan, I don't think it's fair to the offensive line. You have to ask everybody to be a part of this game plan and not just say we're going to go up and go down with one player. It's just not how college football was designed. It's not what has made Bama great. I mean, Tua and Najee, right?
yeah,
Coker and Derrick Henry. It just like you go all the way back, AJ McCarron, Trent Richardson.
yeah,
You've always had complementary pieces
right.
on the offensive side of the ball for Alabama. We had to find another complementary piece. It can't be Jalen Milroe throwing go balls and then pulling on zone reads. So that's my two keys of the game: affect their quarterback and try to help ours and help the offensive line in front of him. It's a tall task, and I think a bowl game is definitely in your future, and I think the lead up to that bowl game, Simone is going to tell you a lot about what the future of this program is under Kalen DeBoer. How many times do we hear opt out? How many times do we hear portal? How many
Yeah.
times do you hear things like that? That's going to tell you the story about the inside of that locker room. We don't know the full story about the inside of that locker room, but you're getting ready to learn here over the next couple of weeks what that looks like and who's going to be on the move.
Really good stuff, Mike. All true on every part, and we will see what this looks like. It's gonna be a 2:30 kickoff, the Iron Bowl there at Bryant Denny Stadium as Auburn comes to town to play Alabama, and for Auburn, obviously a bowl berth on the line as they look for their sixth win. So, man, all the storylines that I think we all had planned, written out, we can go ahead and kind of throw those away at least from a week ago because this weekend really, really changed the game, really for both of these programs going into the final week of the regular season. Let's do predictions. I'm going to give mine first because I already did one Iron Bowl preview show for my station WKRG, and I've maintained I have to stay consistent on all these because people are going to put a montage or something together and be saying something different on all these shows. So I got 27-24 Auburn. I think that the Tigers are going to go into Bryant Denny, and I think it's going to be a close game. I think that Alabama might come out and score a little bit, but I think that Auburn might weather the storm as well. I don't like the talk from the freshmen. I think just being a former college athlete, even though it's small time American college football basketball, you start to wonder what's the mentality of this locker room. But that tells me there's confidence. Kalen DeBoer sounded like a different Kalen DeBoer on Monday than Kalen DeBoer has sounded for how many games have they played? 11 weeks. It's the
Yeah,
first time
right.
I will ever have said that. The guy is so consistent after the biggest win and after the disappointing loss we've seen this year. He has been the same guy until last Monday. It makes me wonder if there's a message coming from the players to him that's made him be different, or if that's the message to him from him to players that it's just different. It's different. I don't like that for Alabama at all. Again, I have no dog in the fight when it comes to this game. I always want to see a good game. I always want to see one of our local teams compete for a national championship because then I get to go to better games. That's really I say that every single year. But I didn't like his demeanor. I don't I'm not being critical. I haven't really been critical of Kalen DeBoer all year. So again, not calling for him. I think he's totally the man for the job. He's handled the transition from Nick Saban to a different regime as perfectly as anybody can do it. I don't like the demeanor. I think that Auburn can pull off an upset there in Tuscaloosa this weekend.
Listen, it's going to be a tough task. I would just say that, and I think that I'm looking for a little bit lower scoring game. I was going to go with like 24-20 Bama. I understand where your prediction coming from because I feel kind of along the same lines. I think that Bama's going to have to create explosives. I think you go back to what you were trying to do offensively against Georgia earlier in the year, where you were hitting running backs out of the backfield on swing passes and throwing more of those one-on-one balls, to Ryan Williams and things like that. But look, they have a number of pieces to solve. You cannot let Auburn grind down that clock on you and stay on the field because you're going to need a couple of cracks at it if you're Alabama on offense to make sure you get the wheels spinning in the right direction. I'm with you on Kalen DeBoer as well. Look, this is a guy who we talked a bunch of times in the build up to this season and throughout the season about how much success he's had as a head coach.
Yeah,
You know what he hasn't had a lot of? A lot of downtimes.
true.
He hasn't had a lot of these situations where he's had to go in and answer question after question about why his team didn't play well. And I think that his reaction over the next couple of weeks, like I said, is going to tell us a lot about what the insight is in that
Yeah,
locker room under him. So I'm with you. Look, man, I got a lot of respect for Auburn as a program. I know there's not a lot of Alabama people that say that, but that's how I feel. And I think that it's going to be a tough game, but I think Bama pulls it out in the end. I think home field advantage in Tuscaloosa is just
correct.
next level and has been for a while in this game, as it is at Auburn. And so I think home field really is the edge that Bama needs, and hopefully they get back on track and finish strong on the season with a win.
No question, the Tide thanking the schedule that they are back home this year after a season that has been filled with, man, really high moments. When you think about the Georgia game, and then some low moments when you think about Vanderbilt disappointing with Tennessee, and then Oklahoma. Definitely not where Alabama wants to be sitting right now at 3 losses going into the final week of the regular season. So, Mike, we'll see what this looks like. 2:30 kickoff there at Bryant Denny. Cannot wait. And man, I'll see you next time for a bowl game. At this point, I guess.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
Have a great Thanksgiving, guys. We'll see you then.
Brought to you by Alabama Beef Farmers and Ranchers.